The village of Obudu lay nestled between two towering hills, their peaks often shrouded in mist. It was a place where the sunrise crept in lazily, painting the earth with a golden hue, yet its beauty masked the darkness that simmered beneath. Obudu, with its red clay roads and thatched roofs, seemed like any other African village to an outsider. But for its people, it was a place bound by deep-seated superstitions, whispers of unseen spirits, and a belief system that dictated every aspect of life. The village elder, Chief Okoye, was a man who carried the weight of tradition. His voice, slow and deliberate, guided every decision, and his word was rarely questioned. Yet despite his wisdom, a darkness plagued his mind, a belief shared by many in Obudu. Albinos, people born without melanin in their skin, were not of this world. They were spirits sent by the gods, their existence a mixture of wonder and terror. Chief Okoye had seen it for himself. An albino child born into the village years ago had died suddenly. And from that moment, the crops withered, the rivers dried, and sickness crept through the village. Whispers floated through Obudu's narrow alleys. The gods are angry, they said. Albinos bring curses. The villagers believed that albinos possessed magical powers, a connection to the spirits that could bring wealth and protection if used correctly. But their magic could also wreak havoc if not controlled. To many, the only way to harness these powers was through ritual sacrifice, a grotesque belief that led to the persecution of people born with albinism. It was in this village, shrouded in such fear, that Nkem was born.
In the village of Obudu, the day had come for Awale's marriage to the young, hard-working Chima. Awale was celebrated not only for her beauty, but for her virtue, as the elders spoke of her as a true daughter of the land, pure and full of grace. Awil, may your womb bear fruits as rich as the land you walk on, and may your marriage be filled with peace and prosperity.
Thank you, Mama. May it be so. One day, Awil and her friend Nena are at the riverbank washing clothes. Nena keeps glancing at Awil's midsection, noticing her growing belly.
Awili, are you hiding something from me? Your waist beads are not as loose as they used to be.
Alhana, don't tell anyone yet, but yes, I'm with child. I only found out recently.
Awili, this is wonderful news. Oh, I can already see you holding your little one. You will make such a wonderful mother.
I hope so, Nena. Chima has been so kind to me, but I don't want to sit at home doing nothing. I love my business at the market.
Of course, Awili. Pregnancy is not a sickness. You are strong, and the market is your second home.
The busy marketplace, bustling with life. Awili, now visibly pregnant, stands at her stall, arranging fruits and vegetables with precision. The village women and men approach her, congratulating her as they purchase her goods. You are truly a hard-working woman. How do you still come to the market with the baby growing in your belly? You are an inspiration to many, Awili. May the gods protect you and your child. When it was time for Awili to bring forth her child, the village was alive with anticipation. The air was thick with the sound of distant drums and whispers of excitement among the villagers. Awili, though tired from the long journey of pregnancy, was filled with both joy and trepidation. She had continued working at the market, defying expectations, and now she would defy them once again, not only by giving birth, but by showing the village that strength comes from within, not just from traditions or expectations. As the midwives gathered around, Awili's husband, Chima, stood outside, anxiously pacing. He knew Awel was strong, but the process of childbirth always carried risks.
Awele labored through the night, her screams swallowed by the dense forest that bordered Obudu. As dawn broke, her cries ceased, and the midwife emerged from the hut, her face pale and her hands trembling. "Nkem is different," she whispered to the elder women waiting outside. Aole's husband, Uche, rushed in, his heart pounding with anticipation. But when his eyes met his newborn son, a wave of disbelief washed over him. Nkem's skin was pale, milky white, almost translucent. His eyes light brown, and his hair the color of sun-bleached straw. Uche recoiled, "The gods have cursed us," he muttered. Owella, weak from childbirth, reached for her child. But even as she held him, love warring with fear in her chest, she knew what this meant. Nkem was an albino, a child of light, but in Obudu, this was not seen as a gift. It was a curse. As the months passed, Nkem grew into a lively boy, his laughter brightening the dark corners of their modest home. Yet the village watched him with suspicion. Mothers pulled their children away when Nkem toddled by, and whispers followed Awale and Ucha wherever they went. They murmured, "The albino boy brings bad luck. The gods are angry." One day while Uche worked in the fields, a neighbor approached him, his face serious and his voice hushed. "Ucha," he began, "the elder is speaking of sacrifice. He believes the gods demand it, for the good of the village." Uche's heart stopped. He had heard the stories of albino sacrifice, but he had never believed they would come for his son. "We must stop this madness," Uchi whispered, but deep down he knew how powerful superstition could be. That night, when Owel heard the news, she wept. Fear clutched her heart. She knew they had to leave. But where could they go? How could they protect Nkem from a village that saw him as a curse? The village witch doctor, Osita, was a man feared by all. His scarred face and eyes that seemed to see into the soul made him a figure of both awe and terror. He had served Chief Okoye for years, guiding him through rituals that had supposedly saved the village from famine and sickness. One night, Osita visited the chief's hut, his voice low and deliberate. "The gods demand a sacrifice," he said, "to restore balance. The boy, the albino child, must be offered." Chief Okoye hesitated. "He is but a child," he said, his voice faltering. Osita's eyes gleamed. "A child of light, yes, but his power is dangerous. We must appease the gods before misfortune strikes again." And so the decision was made. The elders, swayed by fear and the words of the witch doctor, agreed. Nkem would be taken under the cover of darkness, and the ritual would be performed at dawn. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Owl had overheard the conversation between Uchi and their neighbor, and in the dead of night, she woke her husband. "We must leave now," she whispered, her voice trembling. They gathered what little they could carry and bundled Nkem in a shawl. Silently, they crept through the village, their hearts pounding with every step. The forest loomed before them, dark and foreboding, but it was their only chance. As they entered the thick underbrush, the sound of drums echoed in the distance. The villagers had gathered for the ritual. Uchi quickened his pace, carrying Nkem as Owella struggled to keep up. But before they could disappear into the safety of the forest, a shadow emerged from the trees. It was Osita. "You cannot escape the will of the gods," he hissed, his eyes glowing with malice. Aol stepped forward, her voice steady despite her fear. "This is our son. He is not a curse. He is not yours to take." Osita smiled, a slow, cruel smile. "You misunderstand. The boy is not mine. He belongs to the gods." Uche, desperate, lunged at Osita, but the witch doctor was quick. He raised his staff, and with a flick of his wrist, Uche was thrown to the ground. Owly screamed, but Osita grabbed Nkem, his grip tight and unyielding. Just as all hope seemed lost, a blinding light filled the forest. The air hummed with an energy that made the trees shiver and the ground tremble. Osita froze, his eyes wide with fear. A figure emerged from the light, an elderly woman, her skin as pale as Nkem's, her hair white as snow. She was an albino, just like Nkem. "Enough," she said, her voice echoing through the trees. "The boy is not a curse. He is not a tool for your twisted rituals." Osita backed away, his confidence shattered. "Who are you?" he stammered. The woman smiled, a sad, knowing smile. "I am what you fear. I am the truth you refuse to see." With a wave of her hand, the light engulfed Osita, and he disappeared, leaving nothing but the echo of his screams. The elderly woman, whose name was Adora, led Awele, Uche, and Nkem to a hidden village deep within the forest. It was a place where people like Nkem and Adora, people with albinism, lived in peace, far from the superstitions of the outside world. As they settled into their new home, Adora explained the truth about albinism. "We are not cursed," she said. "Our skin lacks melanin, but that does not make us less human. It is fear and ignorance that create monsters, not the color of our skin. Owl and Uchi listened, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of how close they had come to losing their son to superstition. But they also felt a sense of hope, knowing that there were others like Nkem, others who had survived the cruelty of their villages. Years passed, and Nkem grew into a strong, confident young man. He learned about his condition and the myths that surrounded it, but he also learned about the power of truth and knowledge. One day he returned to Obudu, not as a victim of superstition, but as a beacon of hope. With him, he brought the stories of those who had been persecuted, the lives that had been lost to ignorance, and the truth about albinism. He stood before the villagers, many of whom had once feared him, and spoke with a calm, steady voice. "We are not spirits," he said. "We are not cursed. We are human, just like you." Chief Okoya, now an old man, listened from his seat at the center of the gathering. His eyes, once filled with fear and uncertainty, now held a glimmer of understanding. "We were wrong," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "We were blinded by fear." Nkem nodded. "Fear can be powerful, but knowledge is stronger." There is the moral of the story. The belief that albinos possess magical powers and bring misfortune is rooted in ignorance and fear. Albinism is a genetic condition caused by the lack of melanin in the skin, hair, and eyes. People with albinism are no different from anyone else in terms of their humanity, and it is through knowledge, rather than superstition, that true understanding and compassion can be achieved. If you enjoyed this piece, comment "Knowledge is stronger" below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more enlightening and informative content like this. Thank you, and see you in the next.